The stars had belonged to the Zorath Empire for 10,000 years. Their ships traveled across 12,000 star systems. Their armies had crushed over 200 different species. Their emperor sat on a throne made from the bones of conquered kings. No one in the known galaxy dared to challenge them. High Admiral Kethvorin stood before the great window of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. His gray skin reflected the light of distant stars. His four eyes looked out at the darkness of space with hunger. He had conquered 30 worlds in his lifetime. He had burned cities and enslaved millions. But he wanted more. He always wanted more. Behind him, the War Council waited in silence. 12 of the most powerful generals and admirals in the Empire sat around a long table made of black stone. Holographic maps floated above the table, showing every corner of Zorathi space. But one area on the map glowed red. It was marked with symbols that meant danger. It was called the Terran Exclusion Zone. For 3,000 years, we have avoided this region, Kethvorin said. His voice was deep and cold. Our ancestors marked it as forbidden. They told us to stay away, but none of them could tell us why. General Vosnak, an old warrior with scars covering half his face, spoke up. The ancient records speak of a species called humans. They say these humans were dangerous. They say our ancestors fought them and lost. Kethvorin laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber. Our ancestors were weak. They had not yet built the empire. They did not have our weapons or our numbers. Whatever scared them is long dead by now. He waved his hand, and the holographic map zoomed in on the exclusion zone. 63 planets glowed within the forbidden region. 63 worlds full of resources that the Empire needed. Metals, water, land for colonies. All of it sitting unused for thousands of years. I have sent probes to the edge of the zone, Kethvorin continued. They found warning buoys, old machines that broadcast a message in every known language. The message says to turn back. It says entering Terran territory is forbidden. Perhaps we should listen to the warning, said Admiral Thessia, a younger officer with bright golden eyes. We do not know what lies within. Kethvorin turned to face her. His four eyes narrowed with anger. You sound afraid, Admiral. Do you think some ancient species of primitives can stand against the might of our empire? We have 5 million warships. We have weapons that can crack planets in half. What could possibly stop us? No one answered. The silence stretched on for a long moment. Finally, Kethvorin smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. I will take this matter to the Emperor himself. We will claim these worlds for the glory of the Zorath Empire, and anyone who stands in our way will be destroyed. 3 days later, Kethvorin knelt before the throne of Emperor Zorath XV. The throne room was vast, big enough to hold 1,000 people. Pillars of white stone rose up to a ceiling painted with scenes of conquest and victory. The emperor himself was old, his gray skin wrinkled and spotted with age. But his eyes were still sharp, still hungry. You wish to enter the forbidden zone, the emperor said. His voice was thin and weak, but it carried the weight of absolute power. You wish to break a rule that has stood for 3,000 years. Yes, my emperor, Kethvorin replied, keeping his head bowed. The zone contains resources we desperately need. Our mines are running dry. Our colonies are overcrowded. If we do not expand, the empire will begin to weaken. The emperor was silent for a long time. Kethvorin did not dare to look up. He could hear the old ruler breathing slowly, thinking carefully. The ancient warnings speak of great danger, the emperor finally said. They speak of a species that could not be defeated, a species that made our ancestors run in fear. Ancient superstition, Kethvorin said. Nothing more. Whatever lived there is surely gone by now. And even if some primitive species remains, they cannot possibly match our power. Give me the Third Grand Fleet, and I will claim those worlds within a single cycle. Again, the emperor was silent. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. It was a dry, rattling sound. You remind me of myself when I was young, Admiral. Hungry, ambitious, unafraid. He leaned forward on his throne. Very well. You shall have your fleet, 5,000 warships and 2 million soldiers. Go into the Forbidden Zone and claim those worlds for me. Bring me victory, and you shall be rewarded beyond your dreams. Kethvorin felt joy surge through his body. He pressed his forehead to the cold floor. Thank you, my Emperor. I will not fail you. 1 month later, the Third Grand Fleet gathered at the edge of the exclusion zone. 5,000 warships hung in the darkness of space, their weapons ready, their soldiers eager for conquest. It was the largest fleet ever assembled for a single mission. It was enough firepower to destroy 100 worlds. Kethavorin stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching the boundary of the Forbidden Zone on his view screen. Red warning buoys floated in a long line across space, blinking with ancient light. Their message played on an endless loop, broadcast in every language known to the galaxy. Warning, entering Terran territory is forbidden. Turn back. This is your only warning. The Admiral smiled and turned to his communications officer. Send a message to the fleet. We cross the boundary in 10 minutes. Any ship that turns back will be destroyed for cowardice. Today, we make history. The fleet began to move forward. Thousands of engines roared to life. The great armada of the Zorath Empire pushed toward the line of warning buoys. As they crossed the boundary, something strange happened. The warning buoys fell silent. Their blinking lights went dark. For a moment, there was nothing but empty space and quiet stars. Then a new message came through. It was broadcast on every frequency, in perfect Zorathi language. A calm voice, neither male nor female, spoke words that made some of the younger officers shiver. You were warned. Proceed and accept the consequences. Kethavorin laughed out loud. A final threat from a dead species. How amusing. He pointed at the stars ahead. Full speed forward. We go to claim our prize. The Third Grand Fleet pushed deeper into the Forbidden Zone. Behind them, the warning buoys remained dark and silent. Ahead of them, something ancient and powerful had begun to wake up. The Zorath Empire had been warned. They had chosen not to listen. They would soon learn why the warning existed. The first planet they found was beautiful. Green forests covered the land. Blue oceans sparkled under a yellow sun. White clouds drifted across a clear sky. It looked like paradise. It was also completely empty. Kethvorin sent 10,000 soldiers to the surface. They marched through empty cities made of strange, smooth metal. Buildings rose high into the sky, their windows dark and silent. Streets stretched out in perfect lines, clean and well-maintained. But there were no people, no bodies, no signs of battle or disease. The city simply stood empty, as if everyone had walked away one day and never returned. This makes no sense, muttered General Vosnak as he reviewed the reports. A civilization does not simply vanish. Where did they go? Perhaps they died out long ago, Kethavorin replied. Perhaps they fled when they saw our fleet coming. It does not matter. The planet is ours now. Plant our flag and move on. They found 7 more planets in the same condition. Empty cities, abandoned technology, no signs of life. The soldiers began to whisper among themselves. They said the planets felt wrong. They said they felt like someone was watching them from the shadows. Some claimed to hear voices when they walked through the empty streets. Kethavorin ignored their fears. Fear was for the weak. He ordered the fleet to press on toward the center of the exclusion zone, toward a star system the ancient records called Sol. This was where the humans had come from. This was their homeworld. If any of them remained, they would be there. But strange things began to happen. Scout ships sent ahead of the main fleet started to disappear. The first one simply stopped transmitting. No distress call, no explanation. One moment it was there, and the next moment it was gone. Kethvorin sent 3 more ships to investigate. They disappeared too. He sent 10 ships together, armed with the best weapons in the fleet. They traveled for 3 hours sending regular reports. Everything was normal. Then in the middle of a sentence, the transmission cut off. The ships vanished from all sensors. No wreckage, no energy signatures, nothing. Admiral, said a nervous young officer, perhaps we should turn back. Something is wrong here. Kethavorin grabbed the officer by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Say that again, and I will throw you out an airlock. We do not retreat. We do not show fear. We are the Zorath Empire, and we bow to no one. He dropped the officer and turned back to the view screen. Continue forward, maximum speed. The fleet arrived at the Sol system 2 days later. What they found there changed everything. Earth hung in space like a jewel. But it was not the primitive world the ancient records had described. The entire planet was covered in a shell of gleaming metal and crystal. Massive rings circled the world, larger than any space station the Zarathi had ever built. Structures floated in orbit that defied all known laws of physics. Some of them seemed to fold in on themselves, existing in shapes that hurt the eyes to look at. "By the gods," whispered General Vosnak. "What is this?" For the first time in his life, Kethaveron felt something cold in his stomach. He pushed the feeling away. "It is just technology. Advanced, yes, but still just technology. Our weapons will work against it." But no defense fleet rose to meet them. No weapons fired from the orbital rings. The planet simply hung there, silent and waiting. The only movement was a single small ship that emerged from one of the rings and flew slowly toward the fleet. "One ship," Kethvorin said with relief. "They send one ship to face 5,000. They are either fools or cowards." The small ship stopped a short distance from the Eternal Dominion. A communication request came through. Kethvorin accepted it. A human face appeared on the screen. It was a female with dark hair and calm brown eyes. She looked young, but something about her gaze suggested she was much older than she appeared. "I am Ambassador Chen," she said. Her voice was soft and clear. She spoke perfect Zorathi, without any accent. "On behalf of humanity, I welcome you to the Sol system, and I must ask you to leave immediately." Kethvorin laughed. "You welcome us and then tell us to leave? You are either very brave or very stupid, human. I have 5,000 warships. You have one." Ambassador Chen did not smile. Her expression remained calm, almost sad. "Admiral, you do not understand what you have done by coming here. Humanity isolated itself 3,000 years ago. We built the exclusion zone not to protect ourselves, but to protect everyone else." "Protect us from what?" Kethavorin asked with mockery in his voice. "From us," she replied simply. "From what we became. From what we can do. We fought wars that nearly destroyed entire galaxies. We developed weapons that could end all life in the universe. When we realized what we had become, we chose to step away. We chose to watch from a distance and let younger species grow without our interference." "Pretty words," Kethvorin said, "but I see no mighty weapons. I see no great fleet. I see one small ship and one human woman telling me to be afraid." He turned to his weapons officer. "Lock all weapons on the planet. Prepare to fire." Ambassador Chen's expression did not change. "I am offering you a final chance to leave peacefully. Take your fleet and go. Never return to this space. If you do this, humanity will remain in isolation. We will not pursue you. We will not seek revenge. Simply leave." "I have a better idea," Kethvorin said. "I will take you prisoner, then I will destroy your precious Earth, and then I will hunt down every last human in the galaxy and sell them as slaves." He gestured to his guards. "Take her." As the guards moved forward, Ambassador Chen finally smiled. It was a sad smile, full of pity. "Oh, Admiral," she said softly, "you have no idea what you have just done." Guards burst onto her ship and dragged her away. She did not resist. She did not fight. She simply walked calmly to the brig, that sad smile never leaving her face. Kethavorin watched her go with satisfaction. Then he turned back to the view screen and gave the order he had been waiting to give. "All ships, open fire. Destroy the Earth." 5,000 warships aimed their weapons at humanity's homeworld. Millions of missiles launched. Energy beams of every color lit up the darkness of space. It was enough firepower to crack a planet in half. And then something impossible happened. The weapons stopped. All of them. Missiles froze in space, hanging motionless as if time itself had stopped for them. Energy beams bent and twisted, curving away from the planet like water flowing around a stone. Not a single shot reached Earth. In her cell, Ambassador Chen closed her eyes and whispered, "I tried to warn them." Above her, the fleet began to scream. Space folded like paper being crumpled in a giant hand. Half the Zorathi fleet simply stopped existing. 2,500 warships, carrying over 1,000,000 soldiers, vanished in less than a heartbeat. There was no explosion, no flash of light, no debris floating through the void. The ships were simply there one moment and gone the next, as if they had never existed at all. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, chaos erupted. Officers screamed and ran in every direction. Alarms blared from every console. Keth Varan gripped his command chair with all four hands, his gray skin turning pale with shock. "What happened?" he roared. "Where did our ships go?" No one could answer him. The sensors showed nothing. The weapons had failed. Half the fleet had vanished without a trace. For the first time in his life, Keth Voran felt true fear. Then every screen on every ship in the remaining fleet flickered. Ambassador Chen's face appeared, but she was no longer in the brig. She stood in a vast chamber filled with soft white light. Behind her, thousands of humans sat in floating chairs, their eyes closed, their faces peaceful. "I warned you," Ambassador Chen said. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. "I gave you every chance to leave. You chose not to listen. Now you will understand why the exclusion zone exists." "What did you do to my fleet?" Catharan demanded. "Where are my ships?" "They are gone," she replied simply, "erased from existence. The atoms that made them have been scattered across 1,000,000 light-years. The soldiers aboard them died instantly, without pain. Consider that a mercy." Kethvoran felt his legs go weak. He had to grab the chair to keep from falling. "That is impossible. No weapon can do that. No technology can erase matter from existence." Ambassador Chen tilted her head slightly. "You think in terms of weapons and technology, Admiral. You think in terms of ships and soldiers. Humanity stopped thinking that way 3,000 years ago." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "We learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. We can fold space and time. We can create matter and destroy it with a thought. We can reach into the heart of a star and reshape it like clay." She gestured at the humans behind her. "Every person you see here has more power than your entire fleet combined. A single human could destroy your homeworld in the time it takes to blink. This is why we isolated ourselves. This is why we built the exclusion zone." General Vosnak stepped forward, his old face twisted with confusion. "If you are so powerful, why do you hide? Why not rule the galaxy?" Ambassador Chen's expression grew sad. "Because we tried that once. Long ago, when we first gained these abilities, we thought we could bring order to the universe. We thought we could end all wars, all suffering, all cruelty." She closed her eyes for a moment. "There was an empire called the Vexari Dominion. They ruled an entire cluster of galaxies. They were cruel and brutal, much like your empire. They refused to change their ways. They attacked us." She opened her eyes, and for the first time, Keth Voran saw something terrifying in them. Not anger, not hatred, just endless, bottomless sorrow. "In our anger, we erased them. All of them. 14 billion living beings, wiped from existence in a single moment of rage. Their worlds still exist, but they are empty now. Silent, dead. We killed an entire civilization because we were angry. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion had gone completely silent. Every officer stared at the screen, barely breathing. After that," Ambassador Chen continued, "we realized what we had become. We were no longer protectors. We were gods of death. We could destroy anything, anyone, anywhere. And we had proven that we could not be trusted with that power. So we chose to step back, to hide, to watch from a distance and hope that younger species would learn to be better than us." She looked directly at Kethvoran. "We have watched your empire for centuries. We have seen your cruelty, your slavery, your genocide. We have wanted to stop you many times. But we were afraid of what we might do if we allowed ourselves to act again. So we stayed silent. We stayed hidden. We hoped you would change on your own." "We are the Zorath Empire," Kethvoran said, but his voice was weak now. "We answer to no one. We bow to no one." "I know," Ambassador Chen said softly. "That is why I am giving you one final choice. Take your remaining fleet and leave this space. Return to your empire and tell them what you saw here. Tell them about the power humanity possesses. Tell them that the exclusion zone must never be violated again. Do this, and we will let you go. We will return to our isolation. We will watch and wait and hope." "And if I refuse?" Kethavoran asked, though he already knew the answer. Then the Zorith Empire will join the Vexari Dominion in oblivion. Every world you have conquered, every ship you have built, every soldier, every citizen, every child, all of it erased in less than a second. We do not want to do this. We have spent 3,000 years trying to forget what we did to the Vexari, but we will do it if we must. To protect the rest of the galaxy from you. She held out her hand, palm up, as if offering him something precious. Choose, Admiral, life or death, not just for you, but for your entire species. Keth Voran looked around the bridge. He saw fear in the eyes of his officers. He saw men and women who had conquered hundreds of worlds, now trembling like children. He thought about everything he had built, everything he had achieved. All of it could end in a moment if this human woman wished it. But he also thought about his pride, his honor, the legacy of the Zorith Empire. How could he return home in shame? How could he face his emperor and admit that he had been defeated by a single planet? His four eyes narrowed, his hands clenched into fists. The fear in his stomach transformed into something else, something hot and dangerous. I am High Admiral Keth Voran of the Zorith Empire, he said through gritted teeth. I have never retreated. I have never surrendered. I will not start now. He turned to his officers. All ships, ramming speed. If we cannot destroy their planet with weapons, we will destroy it with our hulls. For the glory of the Empire. On the screen, Ambassador Chen lowered her hand. The sadness in her eyes deepened. Then you have chosen. May whatever gods you believe in have mercy on you, because we cannot. The screen went dark. The remaining ships of the Third Grand Fleet turned toward Earth, their engines roaring to full power. They never reached the planet. Time itself seemed to stop. The ships froze in space, caught in the mid-flight like insects trapped in amber. Inside them, 2 million Zorathi soldiers found themselves unable to move, unable to speak, unable to even blink. They were conscious, they were aware, but they were completely paralyzed. And then the real punishment began. Keth Voran could not move. He could not speak. He could not close his eyes or turn his head. He could only stand frozen on his bridge, staring at the view screen, trapped in a single moment that refused to end. His heart still beat, his lungs still breathed, but his body refused to obey any command his mind gave it. At first he thought it would only last a few seconds. Then minutes passed, then hours, then days. Time stretched into an endless ocean of silence and stillness. He could see his officers frozen around him, their faces locked in expressions of fear and confusion. He could see the stars through the view screen, unmoving points of light in the eternal darkness. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. He tried to move even a single finger, but his muscles refused to respond. He was a prisoner in his own body, aware of everything but able to do nothing. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Keth Voran felt himself going slowly mad. He had nothing to do but think. Every memory of his life played over and over in his mind. Every person he had killed, every world he had burned, every slave he had taken. The faces of his victims haunted him, appearing in the corners of his frozen vision like ghosts. He began to understand what the humans had done. This was not just paralysis. This was punishment. They wanted him to feel what it was like to be helpless, to be trapped, to be at the mercy of a power far greater than himself. All those species he had conquered, all those people he had enslaved, they had felt exactly like this, helpless, hopeless, alone. Somewhere in the endless frozen time, he began to cry. The tears would not fall from his eyes, but he felt them building up inside him, an ocean of grief and regret that had nowhere to go. While Keth Voran suffered in his frozen moment, time moved normally on Earth. The Council of Humanity gathered in the Great Chamber to decide the fate of the Zorith Empire. Thousands of humans sat in floating chairs, their minds connected through technologies that had no name in any other language. They shared thoughts and feelings without speaking. They debated and argued in silence, their consciousness flowing together like rivers joining the sea. Some called for total destruction. The Zorathi were cruel beyond measure. They had enslaved billions. They had committed genocide against dozens of species. They deserved to be erased, just like the Vexari before them. Others called for mercy. Destroying the Zorathi would only prove that humanity had not changed. It would mean falling back into the same rage that had haunted them for 3,000 years. The cycle of violence had to end somewhere. Why not here? Ambassador Chen stood before the council, her voice calm and measured. The admiral made his choice. He chose violence when he could have chosen peace. But his soldiers did not make that choice. The civilians of the Zorathi Empire did not make that choice. Do we punish all of them for the actions of one arrogant leader? The debate continued for 3 months. Different ideas were proposed and rejected. Some wanted to simply let the fleet go. Others wanted to destroy it completely. Still others suggested more creative punishments, designed to teach a lesson without causing permanent harm. In the end, they reached a decision. The fleet would be returned to Zorathi space. The soldiers would be released from their frozen state, but they would remember everything. They would remember every second of their paralysis. They would carry the weight of that endless, helpless time for the rest of their lives. And they would deliver a message to their emperor. The humans reached out with their collective will and touched the frozen fleet. Time began to move again. But for the soldiers aboard those ships, subjective centuries had passed. 300 years of frozen consciousness, trapped in a single moment. 300 years of silence and stillness and slowly growing madness. When the spell broke, the screaming began. Soldiers collapsed on decks across 2,500 ships. Some curled into balls, weeping like children. Some tore at their own skin, desperate to feel something, anything, after centuries of numbness. Some simply sat and stared at nothing, their minds shattered beyond repair. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Kethovoran fell to his knees. His gray skin had turned almost white. His 4 eyes were wide and empty, the eyes of a man who had seen things no living being should ever see. His mouth moved, forming words over and over again. "They're gods," he whispered. "They're gods, they're gods, they're gods." He did not respond when his officers spoke to him. He did not react when they lifted him to his feet. He simply kept whispering those same words over and over, like a prayer or a curse. The fleet appeared suddenly in the space above the Zorathi homeworld. One moment, the sky was empty. The next moment, 2,500 warships hung in orbit, their hulls scratched and battered as if they had aged 1,000 years in a single day. Panic spread across the planet. Emergency signals blared. Defense platforms activated. No one understood what had happened. The Third Grand Fleet had been gone for less than a month. Why did they look so old? Why were the soldiers screaming? Then every screen on the planet flickered to life. Ambassador Chen's face appeared, broadcast to every city, every home, every ship in the system. "People of the Zorath Empire," she said. Her voice was calm but carried an edge of steel. "Your fleet entered our space against our warnings. They attacked our world. They took me prisoner. They tried to destroy Earth itself." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We have returned them to you. They have been punished, but they are alive. They will tell you what they experienced. They will tell you about the power humanity possesses, and they will deliver our message." Her expression hardened. This was mercy. The Zorathi fleet violated our territory and attempted genocide against our species. In return, we gave them back their lives. We gave them the chance to warn you. There will not be a second chance. She leaned closer to the camera, her brown eyes seeming to look directly at every Zorathi watching. "Stay out of our space. Do not test us again. We have watched you for centuries. We have seen your cruelty, your slavery, your endless hunger for conquest. We chose not to act because we feared our own power. But if you force our hand again, we will not hold back. The Zorath Empire will become a memory, a warning, a ghost story told to children." She straightened up and her expression softened slightly. "Or you could change. You could free your slaves. You could make peace with the species you have conquered. You could become something better than you are. We would welcome that. We would celebrate it. The choice is yours." The screen went dark. In orbit above the planet, soldiers continued to scream. Medics rushed from ship to ship, trying to help men and women whose minds had been broken by centuries of frozen time. And in his cabin aboard the Eternal Dominion, what remained of High Admiral Kethovoran sat in a corner, his eyes staring at nothing, still whispering his endless prayer. "They're gods. They're gods. They're gods. The Zorath Empire had received its warning. This time, they would listen. The Zorath Empire fell apart in less than a year. It started with whispers. Soldiers from the Third Grand Fleet told their stories to anyone who would listen. They spoke of frozen time and endless darkness. They spoke of ships that vanished without a trace. They spoke of a single human woman who commanded more power than the entire Zorathi military. They spoke of gods who lived behind the exclusion zone, watching and waiting. The recordings spread across the empire like fire. Every citizen saw Ambassador Chen's face. Every citizen heard her words. Every citizen learned the truth. The mighty Zorath Empire, conquerors of 200 species, had been humiliated by a single planet. Their greatest fleet had been broken like a toy in the hands of a child. Fear turned to anger. Anger turned to rebellion. The first uprising happened on a slave world called Vethnor. The Cathani people had been slaves for 800 years. They had mined minerals and built ships and died by the millions to feed the Empire's hunger. When they saw the footage of the Third Grand Fleet's defeat, something changed inside them. If the Zorathi could be humbled, then the Zorathi could be beaten. They rose up in the night. Guards were overwhelmed. Weapons were seized. Within a week, the entire planet was free. The rebellion spread. Slave species across the Empire saw what the Cathani had done and found their courage. The Moravi threw off their chains on 12 worlds. The Thessan fought back against their masters in the orbital factories. The Yexari, descendants of refugees who had fled the Vexari dominion 3,000 years ago, led revolts across the entire Outer Rim. The Empire tried to crush the rebellions, but their forces were stretched thin. The Third Grand Fleet had been their strongest weapon, and now half of it was gone forever. The other half was filled with broken soldiers who screamed in their sleep and flinched at shadows. No one trusted the military anymore. No one believed the Empire could protect them. Emperor Zorath XIV was overthrown by his own nobles 6 months after the fleet's return. They blamed him for authorizing the invasion. They said his arrogance had doomed them all. A mob dragged him from his throne and threw him to the slaves he had oppressed for so long. His screams echoed through the palace halls before falling silent forever. But the Empire's fall brought chaos, not peace. Rival factions fought for control. Warlords carved out their own territories. Former slaves turned on each other, old grudges boiling over into new wars. The galaxy burned, and millions died in the flames. Humanity watched from behind the exclusion zone. They saw the suffering their actions had caused. They had broken the Empire, but they had not thought about what would come after. Ambassador Chen stood before the council once again, tears streaming down her face. "We cannot stay silent," she said. "We broke their chains, but we left them in the ruins. We have to help them rebuild." The debate was shorter this time. Humanity had spent 3,000 years hiding from the galaxy, 3,000 years of guilt and fear and loneliness. Perhaps it was time to step back into the light. Not as conquerors, not as gods, but as helpers, as healers, as friends. Ships emerged from the exclusion zone for the first time in 3 millennia. Small vessels, unarmed and unarmored, carrying humans who wanted nothing but to help. They appeared on worlds where people were starving and brought food that seemed to grow from nothing. They appeared in hospitals where the wounded lay dying and healed injuries with a touch of their hands. They appeared in war zones and stopped battles with nothing but words and patience. The former slaves looked at these humans with wonder and fear. Were they gods come to rule over them? Were they new masters seeking to replace the old ones? Ambassador Chen traveled from world to world answering their questions. "We are not gods," she told them. "We are just people who made terrible mistakes and are trying to do better. We do not want to rule you. We do not want to control you. We only want to help you find your own path." Some did not believe her. Some saw humanity's power and fell to their knees in worship. New religions sprang up, calling the humans divine beings, praying to Earth as a holy place. Others saw humanity as a threat, a new empire waiting to be born. They stockpiled weapons and prepared for a war that never came, but most simply accepted the help and moved on with their lives. They built new governments and new societies. They made peace with former enemies. They learned to rule themselves for the first time in centuries. It was messy and difficult and full of setbacks, But they were free. For the first time in their history, they were truly free. 1,000 years passed. The galaxy was different now. Wars still happened, because sentient beings would always find reasons to fight. But genocide was unthinkable. Everyone knew about the Terran exclusion zone. Everyone knew what humanity had done to the Zorath Empire and the Vexari Dominion before them. No one wanted to draw the attention of the silent watchers behind the boundary. The warning buoys still floated at the edge of Terran space, broadcasting their endless message. But now the message had been updated. Along with the warning came footage of the Third Grand Fleet's defeat. Along with the warning came Ambassador Chen's speech. Along with the warning came a simple statement: "We are watching, we are waiting. We hope you will be better than those who came before." Children across the galaxy grew up hearing stories about the Terrans. Some said they were gods who slumbered in the heart of the Sol system, dreaming of creation and destruction. Others said they were monsters, beings of such terrible power that they had to lock themselves away to prevent themselves from destroying everything. Still others said they were simply people, ancient and wise and sad, carrying the weight of sins committed long ago. The truth was somewhere in between. In the Sol system, humanity continued its eternal vigil. They watched the younger species grow and change and struggle. They celebrated their victories and mourned their defeats. They sent help when help was needed and stepped back when stepping back was right. They were not perfect. They still made mistakes, but they were trying. Every day, every year, every century, they were trying to be better than they had been. Ambassador Chen stood on the surface of Earth, looking up at the stars. She had lived for 4,000 years now, her body maintained by technologies that had no name. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had witnessed horrors and miracles beyond counting. And still she hoped. "Do you think they'll ever be ready?" asked a young human standing beside her. He had only lived for 100 years, barely an adult by humanity's standards. Chen smiled, the same sad, wise smile she had worn when facing the Zorathi fleet so long ago. "Maybe," she said, "maybe someday they'll grow wise enough to join us. Maybe someday we can come out of hiding and walk among them as equals. And if they don't?" She looked up at the stars, at the millions of worlds full of struggling, hoping, dreaming beings. "Then we'll keep watching. We'll keep waiting. We'll keep hoping." She put a hand on the young man's shoulder. "That's all anyone can do. Hope and try to be better tomorrow than we were today." On the border of the exclusion zone, the ancient buoys continued their broadcast. Ships from dozens of species passed by, giving the boundary a wide berth. No one crossed the line. No one dared. The warning was clear. The warning was eternal. And this time, everyone listened. "Warning! Entering Terran territory is forbidden. Turn back. This is your only warning." The galaxy remembered. The galaxy learned. And somewhere behind the boundary, humanity watched and waited, hoping that someday they would not have to watch alone.